And so I'll introduce them together, and then they're gonna tag team their presentation a little bit. But our next presenters. First, we'll hear from Chris Black, who is a rancher in the Bruno, Idaho area. The Blacks just barely moved to Bruno back in 1875. And so they've been around for a while there. Chris attended a holistic management training years ago, and then has applied that in his management of his allotments and things. He's earned some stewardship awards, and I've been out on some of the places that Chris manages and seen some of the historical photos that he'll show you some today. But just amazing the improvements that have occurred there due to some outstanding management. And so Chris is going to share some of his on the ground experiences, and then he'll be followed by Thadd Strom. Thadd is the range program manager for the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. And he's been with ISDA for the last 3 years, worked out of the Twin Falls office, and then came to Boise. I don't think out of a love for Boise, but maybe to take over the program as Brooke Swanky went back to her home state of Montana. But Thadd has, he graduated from Colorado State University with out of the natural resource management, rangeland ecology. That's kind of his background and training. And then he's been working with the BLM and Forest Service and producers in trying to help further monitoring efforts throughout the state. He received he's been honored by coworkers and received in 2019, he was the Top Hand Award winner for the Idaho section of the Society for Range Management. We're looking forward to hearing from Chris and Thadd. And so without anything further, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chris.
Okay. Okay, if you can see the presentation here, you know, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, and that's what this presentation is about. All of the slides in this presentation, you know, on my ranch, they're in Owyhee County, 93% of the land is public land. We have a huge dependence on BLM allotments, state allotments, and whatnot. And in that comes the responsibility to be able to prove what you're doing out there is the correct way to do things. So that's where monitoring comes in, is seeing these changes over time and finding out how things look. In holistic management, monitoring was important to understand where you're going to go in the future by knowing what's happened in the past. So we set up basically 24 of these type of monitoring transects. They were 100-point transects, but they included photos. As you can see, this was from '93. This was from 2005. Every slide in here that I put in has been given to BLM. So monitoring also is no good unless you can use it to change the situations that you're in. Okay, this is some of the results. Now, this is actually a place where we have soil. And most of my allotment doesn't have soil, but that's pretty graphic right there, even aside from the fact that the 100-point transects related to that too. But what you're seeing is the bare ground is going away and whatnot. I won't get into the management of it and how I came to this, because that's a whole nother story. But this is the effects. This is what you can do with monitoring, is show these particular things. This was 93. That was 2005. This is all in some presentations I did to BLM. Same way here. This is interesting, this area, because, and you can see these this big rock here. You'll see it in later slides, but it's interesting because I put an Uplands transect just to the left-hand side of this big rock out here, and you'll see it along with some riparian type monitoring, photo monitoring. So, and that's all right here, and up here you can see this reservoir, which is a watering facility basically for my cattle in the small meadow. This was from 94 in this Uplands transect, you know, feed away from that meadow. This is from 2005. If I hadn't have been taking pictures and doing the monitoring back in 94, I would never have seen these results. And anyone that comes on my allotment wouldn't realize what's happening there, how the interspaces have filled in and there's less bare ground, and more of that rainfall that comes onto my property goes into it. And I've done this with monitoring. We used to put these boards out in all the pictures so that we could identify the plots and everything. And now we do it more with our cameras. You know, this was in a slideshow too. This picture was taken in 94. In the spring of 94, where the hand is here, was taken in the spring of 94, and that's in 2005 down here. This is after grazing in 2005. This was regrowth that came back in those areas. Now, somebody that came into this to understand, this is a spring right here, and this is a reservoir or a livestock watering facility. Somebody that came into this area in August might see hardly any growth on these meadows, but there's you have regrowth too. Oops. Now, all the slides in this presentation except for this one, and I built this in for it, but every other slide in the presentation has been taken basically out of the record that BLM has for us. Okay, I'm just going to read this. This is in Anticipation Springs. You can actually see down here where that Uplands plot is, and then this reservoir and this spring here. Well, Anticipation Springs had the 100-point Uplands plot in the previous two slides, and then compared meadow plots from 1994 and 2005 in this last slide. I started doing upland transects because who would have thought that BLM would consider this developed spring and reservoir, which is a livestock watering facility, critical riparian habitat. You know, under PFC, you're not supposed to do water tanks and things. But anyway, also, who would have thought that BLM would base my permit renewal off one site visit in 2012 by a rec tech doing PFC on this facility and not revise that information today. So this is a livestock watering facility and can never have much more stubble height all season grazing long. But in the management framework for BLM, there's a provision that says that if an area can hit seed ripe during the year, grazing year, it meets the management framework guidelines. This is why these photos taken in June instead of September, as you saw in the last one. So if I need to, I can prove that these plants were reaching their full biological potential by hitting seed drive. Sometimes in September, depending on conditions and cattle rotation, if it's a dry year, I may not see the recovery. This spring, a lot of times is totally dry in the fall. So there may not be that recovery until the next spring. And somebody come along might see that and consider it in a deteriorated state when biological nothing is further from the truth. As these photos that span 25 years just in this presentation attest to, since it's not met PFC in 2012 in the one site, this caused problems in my permit renewal. I proposed to fence the Springhead off and further develop the spring pipeline and water tank. That way both wildlife and cows can have clean drink of water anytime. My permit renewal is still pending, but that was just the idea behind here, is fence these Springheads off and put it in a pipeline and put it out for access to everything. That's what I was asked to talk on, is both riparian monitoring and uplands monitoring. So we'll go through it. These were some areas that in 2012 were rated as not functioning. These 3 separate springs here were rated as not functioning. Yet when I walked the BLM down there in 2015, this is what it is. I mean, obviously to me that's functioning. Here's just another photo of the same thing. Then when you take monitoring photos, you need to take advantage of situations. These are BLM people in the background in this photo. Same here, this is a Springhead, and just to gauge the height of the grass there. And these were taken in July. Just some more in other areas, just to prove that I've done this all across my allotment. But when you take a one point in time assessment of a allotment, then it's not a longer reach. What monitoring will do, this is from 2017, then you get a skewed idea on what's going on the ground. This is another reservoir and Springhead. I actually proposed fencing that Springhead off and put it in a tank also. Just some more, just to prove that this is a Dick Shooter Creek, which is a totally ephemeral stream right by the road. All my cattle pass through all this all the time. You know, if you remember this rock in the last photo, this is what it looked like in 2017. You saw the last ones were from 2005. So all of this ground is healed actually through time. This reservoir here, and I may show it here. Yeah, this reservoir here, I had cleaned with a loader, a big loader, the year before, the fall before in 2016. This was taken in 17, and this, you can't even see where it'd been except for the high bank there. So these are, that's the thing, a one point in time assessment, you need to have information going with that, and information going through time to get a accurate picture of what's going on. This is just a photo, and it's basically, I wanted to show you some of the series of next photos in riparians were taken right down here. You don't even have to look at these lines on here, but realize this area is it's an ephemeral stream. Counterstrike is an ephemeral stream, but in the lower section down here, it has these huge potholes, which are dug out portions of the stream naturally dug out portions. They rated Counterstrike as ephemeral, or as not functioning. And I went through on Google Earth and actually proved that it was ephemeral because I took the time. So you can take anything that comes about. These aerial photos from Google Earth were essential to prove that, because you could actually see whether water was running in the stream or not throughout the year. This is a portion of what that channel looks like. Of course, I live in a rock pile, and this is all pretty rock armored, but yeah, even though it's an ephemeral stream, in this section of the creek, you have willow recruitment, all of that stuff. Just another portion from another picture from the other side of the creek. BLM was concerned about these cut banks and thought that was caused by cattle. Well, when I proved that the creek was ephemeral, we also had the 3 hydrologists come out, and the state hydrologists along with BLM came out, and they agreed with me that these cut banks had nothing to do with the cattle grazing. They had more to do with hydrology and water flow. Because I live in such a, or I live and work in such a rock pile, you only have so much to do. This was interesting, and just to kind of prove the point, is the picture was taken in '93 on the lower end of Deep Creek, and I could ride up and look straight across there on a horse to tell you how high that the trash was in the tree. So in that particular area, I know in '84 or '85, I can't remember which, there was a huge flow of water come down. But my whole area up there is basically rock, and there isn't much soil. So in the spring, when the runoff comes off, it all runs down and runs down these creeks. There's no way for it to infiltrate into a place where there's no soil. And with that, I think I will turn it over to Thadd, and he can talk about how you can get hooked up with monitoring.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Good pictures and good information there. So.
Go ahead.
All right. Got. Let me share this.
Can you see yours?
I cannot yet. No. There we go. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Again, my name's Thadd Strom with Idaho State Department of Agriculture Range Program, and to touch into Chris's talk is, you see the good information and the logging of pictures and good things he's had over the years. He's documented on his allotment. If you're interested in starting the same program and not knowing where to start, you're a federal grazing permittee on BLM lands. We have a cooperative photo monitoring program that you might be interested in. Next slide, please. Go ahead. Next slide, please, Chris. There we go. You might ask, thank you. You might ask, why photo monitoring? As we've seen from Chris's pictures over the years, photos can show, oh, back one more, please. Go one more back. There we go. Perfect. Right there. Thank you. As we'd seen over the years and through his pictures, photos can show positive, measurable, and observable changes in the vegetation. The definition of strong or significant progress in the Idaho BLM standards and guidelines for rangeland health. Photo monitoring is range monitoring that ranchers can do readily and perform on an annual basis. And in review of federal agency grazing decisions, ISDA has noticed that a lot of decisions have been made and AUM reductions have been made on limited data and gaps in that data. So this is a place to help fill in those gaps and something that you can do proactively on your allotment, show your successes and help fill out, one document might say one thing, but as you said, you have that backup like Chris showed of, well, this is actually what I found, not and over a time scale and not just a point in time. So next slide, please. One more slide. All right, yeah, you see it? See it. Next slide. There we go, perfect. So this comes available as there's a memorandum of understanding between the State Bureau of Land Management and the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. It was signed in 2014. It's a proactive and collaborative approach to monitoring. Oh, jump one more back for me there real quick, please. So, yeah. So the purpose of the monitoring program is it allows, there we go. Perfect. Okay, jump back in. It allows the options to include photo data in the BLM rangeland health assessments under the MOU, which permittees monitoring on existing trend sites, establishing new photo monitoring sites in coordination with your BLM range specialist, and the inclusion of permittee established photo monitoring sites that are consistent with the process identified by the MOU. The photos then can be used on grazing permit renewal process, as Chris talked about in his situation. Next slide, please. There we go. So the purpose of the monitoring program is ISDA allows, and the program actually allows for participation, coordination, and cooperation with Idaho State Department of Agriculture, land management agencies, and permittees in the collection and review of the photo data. It provides a framework for photo point monitoring to be collected by the permittees and used in grazing permit renewals. And it produces a standardized and scientifically valid photo monitoring protocol for Idaho. And it allows permittees to get a seat at the planning table, talk about some successes, some sites that they would like to highlight and begin monitoring and showing in their videos things that they would like to show. So next slide, please. One more there. Perfect. So the way we achieve that is using Esri's Survey 123 application. The app was adopted to help assist in the photo monitoring process, eliminating the old way of navigating to your monitoring site, having paperwork, having either using your smartphone to take photos or a digital camera, collecting that data, then having to go home, compile, put everything together, and send it to the ISDA specialist. We've solved that issue with this handy field app. And what it essentially does is allows you to do everything on a one-stop shop app, take into the field, enter data on a form that we've created based off the paper model, take pictures of your site inside the application, and then send it in real time and submit it to where it's cloud backed up, and then to the ISDA, which we then send on to the permittee and the BLM. There's no need to create an account with this app, and it's user friendly, and ISDA is here to assist with all steps of the process. Next slide, please. There we go. Well, with the protocol, once you've navigated to these established sites that you've established, you start with taking a 3x3 ground photo. Then you take subsequent landscape photos in different directions, cardinal directions. And from there, using on these photos, you obviously are gathering certain metadata for each site. Some of it will be used you'll have there, and others you'll record prior to the photos, but including the photos is on the photo board, such as date, site number, field office, allotment, and pasture. And this will be taken with every picture and included in every picture. Next slide, please. Is it going? I have a little delay here. Yeah, if you can, next slide, please. Okay.
I clicked the next one. I think we have a delay here.
No worries, no worries. All right. Yeah, and important is, getting all that information. As you can see here, we have 25-year gap in data showing there's been a lot of change on the landscape going from 1989 to 2014. Things have changed, and, tracking annual photo monitoring would be able to track those changes throughout the year. We can see a lot has changed in 25 years on here, just to give you an example. Next slide, please. All right, to give you kind of some numbers of current participation around the state with the program. In 2020, we monitored permittees, ISDA and BLM monitored altogether 143 sites across the state, including that was done by 18 permittees and on 39 grazing allotments. As you can see from the heat map on the right, there's some of our areas around the state where most of the activity is happening. So can get you an idea of how it's spread out. And then, yeah, 2021, looking at some rangeland monitoring trainings. We currently are planning some for spring 2021. So stay tuned. We're kind of in a changing climate right now with things going on. So we're planning on doing some in the spring with U of I Extension, but we're still kind of hammering out those final plans. And we'll stay tuned, and we'll let you know as things go from there. So yeah, how is this monitoring program be successful with your operation? Well, obviously agree to participate, coordinate with the agency to identify data gaps, learn to follow the standardized process with data collection, and that comes with assistance from range specialists at Idaho State Department of Ag. Will come out with help establish the sites, come out with you in the field, help you set up on the app, all the processes there, help you help with the data after the process, after we've done the field work, and then go from there. And then number 4 on that is to collect data annually and participate in its review. Again, to reiterate this, it's a standardization of the monitoring process, gives more credibility to the rangeland photos. And as Chris really did a good job talking about it and talking about things that worked for him, photo monitoring it's like an insurance policy. It tells the whole story. It shows the things that you've seen on your allotment on the ground, and it proves your point. It's a good insurance policy. So next photo, please. There we go. We also wanted to add in there that besides working in upland areas, we also support doing riparian monitoring in those areas on BLM allotments. So if you have riparian sites in your allotment that you'd like to begin photo monitoring on, we also do that as well. As you can know, riparian areas are dynamic. They're always changing, and you can see here on a 13-year gap of data of how the riparian areas changed. Chris showed, measurable changes in his riparian areas from there. So yeah, and again, we truly believe that the future of public lands grazing is in collaborative monitoring, involving all parties involved, from the federal land management agencies to the State Department of Agriculture to the producer, working on the land. So it's going to take all of us together to collaboratively monitor and work together for this. So yeah, so last slide, please. Got one last slide there. There we go. Okay, yeah, and just to get to the last pic, you get one more look at a landscape photo. But if there's any questions, you can reach us at our website there, reach myself or any of the other specialists. And also in the proceedings handed out today, there my information's there, as well as any of our specialists. Love to answer questions, hear from you, and answer any questions you have. So yeah, thank you guys.
All right, thank you, Thad and Chris. There's some great information that you've shared, and definitely some great examples of how having some photos, having some data there can answer some questions and maybe all right, I don't think maybe, I think for sure help out with you know, when things are brought into question, if you can show those things, it definitely can help. The one question I have, which I ask a little bit facetiously, but if you haven't been doing any monitoring, what's the most important day?
Is this for both of us or Chris or?
Either one.
Ours is targeted in our program to peak growing at peak growing season. So, you know, using everything here in Southern Idaho, we're shooting for the peak growing season. In that window, that time frame there is when our program, when we work with BLM and the permittees, that's what we're targeting as that peak growing season. So, you know, obviously it's elevation dependent, but wherever we are in the state, we're looking for that window there. So I'll let Chris answer on his end.
Well, that's a really good question. It's very important to have monitoring data that's replicable, you know, year after year on this kind of the same day or same biological time. But also, as you can see in my photos, I took advantage of situations and created monitoring data out of those situations. So that's aside from those first photos you saw of set plots. Those give me valuable information, but also if you don't take advantage of situations that you're in, and you can create monitoring data out of that over time, well, you're kind of getting behind too, would be my answer.
Okay, and sort of a related question too, what's the most important picture you might take?
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, the most important picture you might take is the one that helps you achieve your goals, whether it be production or just staying on the land. So that's the most important picture you can take, and you will not do any of it unless you start taking pictures.
And that's kind of what I was working to getting to, that, you know, maybe that most important one is the first one, because that's getting the ball rolling, that's getting you started. And then hopefully from there, you've got some of those that are key photos that can really show you what's happening on the landscape.
I think a point to make too, and Chris showed it in his, and it's obviously a key in our program, is you're not just going out arbitrarily taking points all around. It's establishing, you know, a plan, a program, and annually taking those pictures and setting, you know, a plot to do that time over time over time over time, instead of just, you know, taking pictures, where this way it's repeatable, you know, it's defensive in court, things like that. So that's a big one too for when you're doing photo monitoring, having the data there with the photo board and the metadata. So
sure. And I'd like to say that these cell phones are the most productive tool you can use, because they have GPSs, they have cameras, and they have apps that you can use to put the GPS points on, put all of the dates on, all of that stuff on. So yeah.
And you just about always have one with you too. So
Exactly.
that's helpful.
Even when I don't have service, I have one, and which is most of the time I have one with me.
Yeah, they might need a few more towers out, and maybe a few more off a flat road would help you out.
Might be a while.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, thank you both. I appreciate it. That's some great information and some tips there and things. And so we appreciate you taking time and being part of the program today. We're going to go ahead and take a